I see all these low code, no code solutions that are coming out that do kind of, to a certain degree, they allow the business side of things to just kind of snap Legos together to build a product that they might want. Do you think that might be the simplicity that we're looking for to offer to customers that are, and that and RPA are all kind of in my mind is the same?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of those spaces is, they're very good once the task itself has been automatable, right? So I think the difference between, so take like a Terraform or Ansible type of scenario where you go, yes, I'm doing this thing with the network and it needs 12 different tasks to happen, steps to happen in a row, but I still need to be pretty smart about it. I think this is more like, RPA is, as I understand it, very successful when you say there's 10 steps in securing this mortgage, and I could take eight of those out of somebody human doing it, and here's the system that does it. And as long as somebody can kind of drop and drag or sort of draw a picture of it. So I think that's the trick, is that if we can get to a point where the task is really well defined, then you can automate it, and then you can think about, can I put a simple interface on it? Because that's really what the low code things do, is they make the interface either sort of look like PowerPoint or Visio, or they make it look like Excel, and you're like, oh, that doesn't scare me. If it was a bunch of code with different colored words and squiggly brackets and other stuff, like that scares me because I don't know what it it doesn't look like anything I've ever read before.
But that takes us back to your opening remarks, Brian, about engineers wanting to. I don't want it to be simple. I want all the nerd knobs.
Right. Well, it's the great challenge of, as an engineer, you want to grow in what you do, and part of that is you want to take on new challenges, but you also want to stop being a junior engineer and you want to be a senior engineer, and it's hard to prove how good you are if you're not, if somebody doesn't go, wow, that was amazing, like in the context of, I don't think I could have done that. Right. Like if somebody showed me, hey, I snapped together a thing in low code, I would kind of go, I probably could have done that. But if somebody writes like an awesome, Node.js application, and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing, I could have never done that. You have a sense of, or you have some like perspective of, okay, then there must be value to that. Because people do this weird thing. This is the other thing that's sort of weird is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, like people always put things in the context of like either their own skills or like their own salary. So if you go to somebody, for example, and you go, here's a thing and it costs $1 million, and let's say their salary is like $50,000, they're like, that is an insane amount of money. But you could also, that same person could work for a bank that takes in $86 billion a year in revenue, and you're like, okay, it's not even a rounding error of a rounding error. So like, I think part of that engineering piece of wanting all the nerd knobs is, and I've learned this more and more over the last couple of years, is that as people jump jobs more frequently and they change jobs more frequently, you're constantly having to go, am I helping them solve a business problem, or am I helping them build their resume? And that period of time has gotten much shorter, I think, for a lot of people. And so they love the knobs because they're like, cool, I can put Kubernetes on my resume or whatever the heck it is.
Well, Ned, I don't know how you feel, but I feel more impressed with myself when I've done something in Python than when I did something in Zapier.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely true. The sense of accomplishment that I built this thing, I wrote this thing, but I also have to acknowledge that my time is precious. Yes. And spending time writing that Python script, while instructive, also means that I'm not spending that time doing other things, which might actually be more productive to like me as a business or me in my personal life. So there is that conflict between, I do this because it's fun, versus I do this because I'm trying to accomplish a business goal. And if it's your hobby, go for it, Right. But if it's your job, like there's also this feeling, and I think you were alluding to this a little bit, Brian, the not built here syndrome. Well, we didn't build that from scratch, so we can't possibly use this other solution. We have to build it ourselves, which just adds even more complexity.
Right. Yeah, to me, it's always fascinating. I've had a guy on my show a couple of times named Joe Emerson, and Joe's sort of unique in that he runs this little company, and I'm going to forget the name of it, so maybe I'll find it. But basically, he does they're a mortgage company, and he basically was like, I broke down all the tasks that we have in order to be able to do these things that they do. Or actually, that's not right. They're an insurance company, but he's like, I can take those and break those down into all these little serverless tasks, and then the companies that can actually help us do that. And it was always fascinating to me that he sort of put his ego aside of, I could build this unbelievable massive application to do stuff, but he was like, the role of my business is to, be as profitable as possible doing this repetitive task, and I can break it down into these sort of fungible pieces of software or code or an external service. And like, it's always fascinating to me that people that understand stuff from a business perspective, and then sort of go, what's maybe sometimes the minimal technology I need, but it will absolutely do the job I have. So, like, there are sometimes when I see people that, again, I think it kind of goes back to the constraints thing. Like, they'll put the constraints on themselves because they're like, my focus comes from the business side as opposed to the technology side. And there's just not enough people, in our industry that come from enough business background that's a natural thing. I think it's hard for people to do.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it is really, if you came up through the help desk or whatever and earned your stripes by implementing complex systems, it can feel like cheating if you're not continuing to do that or making it even more complex. But at a certain point, and I think this is when you get to the architect level of things, you realize that simplicity is beautiful. And it means less troubleshooting. It means less things to unpack and less things to maintain over time.